Let's master the classics. This right here is a classic old fashioned. Let me show you how to make it. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and like I said, this week I'm keeping things classic with a classic old fashioned. Now, an old fashioned is one of those cocktails where you very much get out of it what you put into it, because if you use good ingredients, you're gonna get a better cocktail at the end of the day. Now, if you're using a lot of juices or a lot of sodas or a lot of sugar, it can sometimes hide good quality ingredients at the end result, but with something so simple as an old fashioned, there's nowhere for a bad ingredient to hide, so you better use some good ingredients. Ultimately, the old fashioned is only made up of 3 core ingredients: whiskey, bitters, and sugar. That's it. It's basically very, very simple, but it can have a lot of variations. There are loads of different old fashioned recipes on my channel if you want to see some kind of different variations, but the classic old fashioned is just whiskey, sugar, bitters, and that's it. And that means there's nowhere to hide a bad ingredient. So for our whiskey, we're using a very good ingredient. We're using Dingle's Single Malt, small batch, their core release. This is a fantastic Irish whiskey. It is from Dingle Distillery here in Ireland. It is a single malt whiskey which is full of flavour, and it comes in at 46.3% alcohol, so it has a huge amount of weight in the glass. It has just a nice bit of presence and it's able to carry through and really deliver a lot of flavors. The whiskey was aged in bourbon and sherry casks, which gives it this kind of syrupy, nice, rich flavor, and it really does deliver really well into an old fashioned, and that's why I'm using it right now. I'll be using a bit of Angostura bitters, a bit of orange bitters, and some brown sugar syrup, and this is a very nice, rich brown sugar syrup. Not hard to make at all. It's just 2 parts brown sugar, 1 part water. Put in a pot, bring it to the boil, and you've got a very nice brown sugar syrup. So what I always do is just go 50 ml of water, 100 grams of sugar, put the 2 together, heat it up, and there you go. Now, for my brown sugars, I often add a little bit of maple syrup too. I add about 20 ml of maple syrup for every 100 grams of sugar I'm using, so about 5 to 1. And that just gives it a really, really nice extra bit of richness. It doesn't make the syrup any extra loose or any extra, thick. It keeps the consistency nice and strong, but it just adds a little bit of extra kind of depth of flavor to the syrup, and it does translate through into the cocktail. So that's enough talking about a cocktail. It's time to make it. It is a stirred drink, so we're going to get our mixing glass and we're going to pop a nice rock of ice into there, and then we're going to measure out our ingredients. We're going to just start off with our whiskey. Like I said, it's the Dingle Core, lovely single malt Irish whiskey, and we're going to go in with 60 ml or 2 ounces of this into our mixing glass, and then we're going to go in with our bitters. For me personally, I like 2 dashes of Angostura bitters and 1 dash of orange. Obviously you can play around with it however you like. If you like it with more Angostura, less Angostura, more orange, or different kinds of bitters, you can, but for me, I like just 2 to 1 Angostura with orange. Just gives it a really nice, I think, base of flavor, and just kind of delivers a lot of kind of balance into the cocktail. And lastly, we're going to go in with our sugar syrup. So we're just going to go in with about a bar spoon. Again, if you like a sweeter cocktail, you can go in with a bit more. If you like a not so sweet cocktail, you can go in with a little bit less. But because that's a nice rich brown sugar syrup, I'm only going in with about a bar spoon, so about 5 ml of our syrup into there. And now we're just going to stir it away for about 30 seconds until the outside is nice and cold. Okay, I can feel from the outside of the glass that this is nice and cold, so I'm going to get ready to strain it out. We're going to be serving it in a nice rocks glass on top of another rock of ice. So we're just going to put our rock in there, put our strainer up top, and just strain it out onto there, just like that. It is a simple enough cocktail to make, but it is very, very tasty. I like using a big rock of ice like that because as you drink it, that ice will melt and it will slightly change the flavor. So if you like it a little bit more diluted, you can always just wait a little bit and it will stay nice and cold and get a little bit more diluted. For a final little touch, just going to get a nice bit of orange peel, express the oils over the top, just like that, drop it in, and that right there is how I make a classic old fashioned. Now real quick, before I taste this, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews on Wednesdays, and I put out whiskey cocktails on Fridays. So if you want to see more like that, make sure you hit subscribe. But for now, let's taste this. It is so hard to beat that classic taste of a classic old fashioned. I mean, it's a very simple cocktail, but it's so easy to change it out. A different whiskey, slightly different bitters, slightly different sugar, and you will get a very, very different result. But because I'm using good ingredients here, I'm gonna get a very good cocktail at the end of it. That Dingle small batch single malt is fantastic. It's syrupy, it's rich, and it really does pair, I think, well with the sugar syrup I made here. With that bit of brown sugar, with that bit of maple syrup, it adds a little bit of extra richness and depth, and it really does pair well. The orange and the Angostura bitters aren't overpowering. They're just like a little bit of salt and pepper to your cocktail, giving you a bit of extra flavor. That orange peel, a little bit of extra kind of aromatics, because there's that oils on the glass. Now, as you bring it up, you get those oil smells, you get that kind of flavor, you get those aromatics, and it just makes for a very classic, simple, and very tasty cocktail. So I think I'm going to keep on enjoying this, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.